Right now, people are paying $15 for a tiny bottle of apple cider vinegar with a wellness label on it and swearing it's a modern breakthrough. A Roman soldier would laugh in your face. 2,000 years ago, the men who built the greatest empire in history drank almost exactly that, cut with water, out of a cheap cup every single day, marching 20 miles under 60 pounds of armor and then building a fort before dark. They called it Posca, sour wine or vinegar, watered down, sometimes with salt and herbs. And it was the closest thing the ancient world had to a sports drink, an electrolyte acid mix that kept a soldier hydrated, alert, and moving when plain water would have failed him. That is the Posca method, not a wellness trend. A war machine's fuel. Stay with me, because by the end you're going to understand how a cup of vinegar water and a rock-hard biscuit fueled the most relentless marching endurance in history, and why what you're buying in the supplement aisle is a 2,000-year-old idea with a markup. Let's talk about what you're actually being sold. The hydration and energy business is enormous. Neon sports drinks with 30 grams of sugar and a die number. Electrolyte powders, energy chews, pre-workout. The whole optimized hydration aisle. And right next to it, the wellness version, apple cider vinegar shots, sold as a fat-burning miracle. Here's the part nobody selling either one says out loud. They're the same idea, split in two and sold to you twice. An acid, some water, a little salt. That's a sports drink, and that's an apple cider vinegar shot. And it's also Posca, which a Roman private drank for basically nothing. The problem was never hydration. It's that we forgot the simplest version already worked. So let's go back to the people who actually ran on it. For centuries, the Roman soldiers' daily drink was Posca, and this goes all the way back to the Republic. Cato the Elder, one of the most famously hard, austere Romans who ever lived, drank Posca on campaign to fight off raging thirst, and he kept drinking it long after his soldiering days were over. Making it was simple. You took acetum, which was wine that had soured into vinegar, or just cheap sour wine, and you cut it with water, roughly 1 part sour to 4 parts water. You'd often stir in a little salt and herbs like coriander or mint, sometimes a touch of honey. That was it. Cheap, sour, and everywhere. And it did something no canteen of plain water could do. On a road where the local water might be foul enough to wreck an army faster than any enemy, the acid in Posca made questionable water safer to drink, and it stretched a little sour wine into a whole day's worth of liquid ration. It was hydration you could trust when trust was the one thing water didn't earn. And Posca had a partner. The solid half of the system was buccellatum. The Romans baked a rock-hard military biscuit for centuries, and by the later empire it had a name that stuck. Flour, water, salt, baked twice, long and low, until every trace of moisture was gone. That is actually where our word biscuit comes from the Latin for twice cooked, twice baked. It turned into something nearly indestructible that lasted for months and refused to spoil, because you cannot rot what has no water left in it. Soldiers soaked it in Posca to soften it enough to eat, and the men who ran on this stuff got so identified with the biscuit that one word for a certain kind of Roman soldier came straight from its name. This is the 2-part system, a carbohydrate brick for fuel, a sour drink for hydration. Together, that is what moved the legions. Now, before we go further, one honest caveat, because this system has two. First, that biscuit is genuinely hard enough to break a tooth, and that is not a joke. Soldiers lost teeth to it, so you never eat it dry. You soak it in Posca, water, or broth until it softens. That's the authentic way and the safe way at the same time. Second, the Posca itself. This is diluted vinegar, and the whole point is the dilution. Straight vinegar is rough on your tooth enamel and hard on a sensitive stomach, so you do not shoot it, which is exactly the mistake the modern apple cider vinegar crowd makes. Cut properly with water, roughly 1 to 4, it's gentle, and people drank it every day for 1,000 years. Add a pinch of salt if you're sweating hard. Ease off if you're not. Handled right, this is one of the safest, most time-tested drinks there is. Now here's why it actually works. So let's break down what this system was really doing, because both halves are smarter than they look. Start with the biscuit and the fuel problem. A legionary was, by any honest measure, a professional endurance athlete. One detailed analysis of the marching load puts the weight on his body around 40 kilograms, which is almost exactly what a modern British infantryman is required to carry today. Same brutal load, and he moved it 15 to 20 miles in a day, and then, instead of resting, dug a ditch and threw up a rampart to build a fortified camp before dark. March under 60+ pounds, then do construction. To do that day after day, you need one thing above all: a steady, dependable supply of carbohydrate, because carbohydrate is the fuel your body burns for exactly this kind of long, grinding, moderate effort. Grain made up roughly 3/4 of the Roman ration, and buccellatum was that grain in its portable, unspoilable form. It was the fuel tank that traveled. Now here's something you can taste right now, and it'll make the science land. Get a glass of water and stir in a small splash of vinegar, apple cider, or red wine, whatever's in the cupboard, and if you've got it, a tiny pinch of salt. Take a sip. Feel that sharp, sour, mouth-waking hit. The way it seems to cut your thirst better than plain water does. The way it actually makes you want to keep drinking. That's Posca. That is almost exactly what a legionary swigged marching through the heat in full armor. That sourness waking up your whole mouth isn't just flavor. That's the sensation of a drink refined over centuries by trial and error to pull a tired body back online. Hold on to that feeling, because now I'll tell you what it's doing. Think about the real enemy of a soldier marching in armor in Mediterranean heat. It's not just thirst, it's salt loss. You sweat out sodium and minerals for hours, and plain water alone doesn't put them back, which is how you end up cramping, weak and foggy even while drinking. Posca answered that directly. The salt the Romans stirred in was doing the heavy lifting, putting back the sodium they sweated out, with the vinegar adding a little potassium and trace minerals on top. Functionally, that served a similar purpose to what a modern electrolyte drink does, arrived at 2,000 years early with sour wine and a pinch of salt. That cramping, hollow, salt-drained feeling you get on a brutal hot day, the kind that hits a man halfway up a dusty hill with miles still to go. That's the precise problem Posca was quietly solving with every sour mouthful. Picture him for a second. 5th hour on the road, tunic soaked through and crusted white with dried salt, the leather of his pack strap creaking against his shoulder, throat like sand. He pulls the stopper, and the first thing that hits him is the sour bite of the vinegar before the water even reaches his throat. That sip is doing more than you'd think, because the acid was doing more than replacing salt. The sharp acidity may have reduced the microbial load in questionable water under the right conditions, which on campaign could be a genuine lifesaver, since bad water has destroyed more armies than battle ever did. That same acidity likely helped digestion against a monotonous diet of hard biscuit and preserved food. And modern work on vinegar suggests that acetic acid in it may help blunt the blood sugar spike from a carb-heavy meal, which fits perfectly, because a legionary's meal was carb-heavy by design. The sour drink and the grain biscuit weren't two random rations. They worked together. So let's clear up the biggest myth about this drink, because the Romans themselves got one part completely wrong. They believed Posca prevented scurvy. And here's the truth, it does not. Vinegar has almost no vitamin C, and scurvy is a vitamin C deficiency, so Posca did basically nothing for it. They credited the drink, when it was really the onions and herbs in their diet doing the job. And before you laugh at them, the US Army was still rationing vinegar against scurvy into the 1800s. But here's the twist. Everything else Posca actually did, the salt, the safer water, the alertness, was real, and more useful day to day than the vitamin C they thought they were getting. They were right about the drink for the wrong reason. And there's a second myth worth killing. People picture Roman soldiers as huge, meat-fed bruisers. They weren't. They ran on grain, roughly 3/4 of the ration, with meat as a supplement, not the base. The bodies that conquered the Mediterranean were built on porridge, biscuit, beans, and sour wine. Carbs conquered the ancient world, and the biscuit that everyone pictures as sad prisoner food, that blandness was the entire feature. Strip out the water, strip out anything that could spoil, and you get a fuel that crosses any climate and lasts for months. The boring biscuit was elite military logistics, which brings us to what we actually lost. We didn't lose access to hydration or fuel. We lost the understanding that the simplest version already worked, and that we keep buying back what people once made for almost nothing. A Roman soldier covered 20 miles under a modern infantryman's load, in armor, in heat, and then built a fort, running on a rock-hard biscuit and a cup of sour water with a pinch of salt. Then modern life took that one cheap cup, split it into a neon sports drink and a premium vinegar shot, wrapped both in marketing, and sold them back as two separate innovations. That's not progress. That's the oldest trick there is. A solved problem rediscovered, repackaged, and sold to people who never knew it was solved. So here's how you actually use this. Posca first, because it's the easy win. Mix 1 part vinegar, apple cider vinegar or red wine into about 4 parts water. Add a pinch of salt if you're training hard and sweating, and if you want it more drinkable, a little honey and some crushed coriander or mint, exactly like they did. Chill it. You're aiming for something that tastes like a mild, watered-down splash of vinegar, sharper than lemon water but nowhere near pickle brine. If it makes you wince, you've gone too strong, so add more water. Reach for it exactly when your body is losing salt and water fast, before or during a hot workout, out on a long hike, deep into a sweaty day outside, or after any hard session that leaves you drained. It's cheaper and dye-free next to the neon stuff, and it's the same drink as your apple cider vinegar shot, just properly diluted so it doesn't wreck your teeth. For the biscuit, mix about 2 cups of flour and use spelt or whole wheat for real nutrition and authenticity, with a teaspoon of salt, adding water slowly. You want a stiff dry dough, firmer than bread dough, closer to a stiff pasta dough, one that barely holds together and doesn't stick to your hands. Roll it 1/2 inch thick, cut palm-sized discs, and punch holes through them. Bake around 375 degrees for half an hour, then drop the oven low, around 250, for another 1 to 2 hours. It's done when it's bone dry and hard enough that it knocks like a block of wood against the counter and won't dent under your thumbnail. Store it dry in a cloth bag on a cool shelf and it lasts for weeks. Pack it with a hard cheese and some cured meat for a long hike, a camping trip, or a ruck. Exactly the way the legions did, and soak it in your Posca for a few minutes, until the surface goes from stone to chewy before you eat. And here's where people go wrong, so you don't. If the biscuit isn't baked bone dry, it holds moisture and molds, so it has to be genuinely hard. Never bite it dry. Always soak it first, unless you like emergency dentistry. Don't make your Posca too strong, because undiluted vinegar is harsh on your teeth and your gut, so keep it near that 1:4 ratio. Use whole grain, not white flour, if you actually want fuel and not just filler. And don't treat the biscuit as a whole meal. It's the carbohydrate anchor, so pair it with protein and fat the way they did. Get those right, and you've rebuilt the exact system that carried an empire. 2,000 years ago, a soldier drank a cup of sour water with a pinch of salt, ate a biscuit hard enough to chip a tooth, shouldered 60 pounds, and walked 20 miles to go build a fort. That sour cup kept him hydrated when the water couldn't be trusted, put back the salt he sweated out, and kept him moving. Today it sits split across 2 aisles of your store, dressed up as a breakthrough and a wellness hack, and most people pay for both, without knowing they're the same thing a Roman private drank for free. The legions didn't have sports science. They had sour wine, salt, and a problem they couldn't afford to lose to. That knowledge survived 2,000 years for a reason. If this changed how you see that vinegar shot or that sports drink, subscribe, because we're breaking down the ancestral fuel behind these warrior cultures one food at a time. And tell me in the comments, what ancient diet or method do you want broken down next? I'm reading them, and the best ones become the next video.